Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Sunday, March 19th, 2023, and today I am sharing true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media and ways to contact me, and also ways to donate to the podcast at the podcast page, and that is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. And so the plan for this week is true stories today and Tuesday, paranormal news tomorrow and Wednesday, and then Wednesday night, Thursday morning show will be the monthly roundtable show, which means it will not be a live stream, but it will come out by Thursday morning, at some point on Thursday morning, as soon as possible. And looking forward to that one, and I will leave it a surprise as to who's going to be on and what we're going to talk about until you all hear it. So that's the plan for this week. Thank you all for being here, as always, to listen, whether you are here live or you listen to the podcast or YouTube feeds. Always appreciate that, either way. So I have several stories here to read and talk about, and so we will get through what we can in this show and then save whatever is left for Tuesday's show. So with that, let me get to the stories here, and we'll start. It's always good to be back here after a couple of days off, and so yeah, let me see here. Alright, this first one says, it's 3:43 a.m. and I'm guessing this is the town name, so I'm not going to say it. It says, my friend and I often like to explore parks late at night, early in the morning. So we went to one nearby. From the moment we arrived, there was a car parked, but no one in the car. We thought maybe someone was sleeping, but upon quickly glancing, we didn't see anyone. So we went to the park. From the moment we stepped out of the car, I saw a tall, lanky, humanoid-looking something. I thought it was a person, but after blinking, it disappeared. My friend then saw the same figure, except black, or dark, I guess they mean, a short distance from where I had spotted it. We figured our minds were just playing with us, so we went and decided to swing. The whole time we heard rustling around us. She started to get nervous, so we started walking back to my car. I could see a small black figure pacing quickly, almost running back and forth between the trees. We were talking about it amongst ourselves when the car alarm went off. We booked it for my car and got in. As we drove away, there was still no signs of any actual person in the car or park. I went the wrong direction when we started leaving, so I had to do a U-turn. And as I drove away, we could see the figure again, pacing between the trees. We were so freaked out that we stopped at a gas station, where I'm writing this, to search the web as to what it could have been. Does anybody have any clue what we may have seen tonight? And that's where that story ends. Sounds like they saw a couple of things. one one short figure, one tall figure, which is really amazing. Almost looking to be like shadow figures, I guess, but also just the different heights. I wonder for what those were. Hard to tell with just the shadow of something like that, but does sound like. I mean, unless this whatever this is can change shape, it doesn't sound like they were seeing the same thing each time. Sounds like at first they saw something tall, and then they saw something else that was short. Um, so I don't know what it is, but they were out in the park. I wonder how close it was to, or how big of a park it was. If it was in the middle of a city, or if it was like maybe on the edge of nature. I can maybe see it being some kind of a nature-based being, spirit, whatever. Um, but hard to say. Again, just so little information there, which is not no fault of theirs. Um, but and at first, when it mentioned the car alarm going off, I was wondering about that. But I mean, I've heard that wind or any number of things can cause those to go off. So I don't know that that's anything too paranormal necessarily. But yeah, amazing story there. I'm glad that they were able to get out and sounded like that short figure followed them out of the park at least for a little ways, but I'm glad it didn't follow them any further than that. So, neat story there.
Members who have now lost.
I'm hearing someone, but that's okay. If everyone can just make sure that you are muted, I will do that as well for you. If you're unable to do that, no problem. But let me see here. Just checking on things. Okay, yeah, I'll just mute. So, just a reminder for anyone that's new, and this is, again, nothing, not picking anyone here, just to let everyone know whenever you listen to the show, whether it's now or any other time when you are in the Discord, just make sure you are muted up, and that way everyone can hear the show. Eventually, things may change where we use a different platform, but for now, this is the easiest way to do this. So, but thank you all for being here again. I see you all there, and yeah, so that's the first story I had for today. Let me move on to the second story here. Let's see. Okay, this one says, when I was a little girl, I lived in a gigantic house out in the country. The house was enormous and Victorian style. It was used as an old age home and a museum. I was about 10 at the time, so it didn't really bug me. I just thought the house was interesting, and I couldn't wait to explore it. After living there for a while, my two friends and my sister and I decided to play a game of hide and seek. For my turn, I ended up searching in the attic for them, and I saw somebody with black hair and a red t-shirt crouched down on all fours. I called out, "I see you there. I found you," a couple of times. But the person didn't answer. They just kept shifting back and forth. In that moment, I realized none of my friends had black hair or were wearing a red t-shirt. Adrenaline rushed through me, and I bolted down the stairs since I was on the main floor. Sorry. It says, I heard people talking in my basement, so I went down there. It turns out my friends and sister were in the basement all along. when I realized they were all down there, I knew for a fact that none of them were in the attic. So who was in the attic? And that's where that story ends. And sounds like someone else. Don't know who, but someone that the writer was not aware of. So, but a neat story there. With those places, you never know. Any kind of house, really, you never know who you're going to meet. I think as far as whether it's a spirit or even, again, time can be weird, do strange things, and so you never know. Sometimes people will have interactions with other people, and it seems like they think they're ghosts, but it's really more of it's someone from a different time who is just as surprised to see the person having the experience as anyone else. So hard to say what was going on there, but neat sighting. Glad that nothing else really happened there. But so yeah, I wonder. It seems like the person wasn't moving a lot. I wonder maybe if they were a spirit and somehow aware of the game. Maybe they were trying to hide as well, somehow. Or again, if it's a time anomaly where there's just these 2 points in time that are somehow touching, then they could have been doing something completely different and not even known that the writer was there. So, or if it was a residual, just an energy recording, basically, they could also explain why they didn't appear to know that the writer was there. So that's it for that story here. Let me move on to the next one. This tonight I found a lot of stories about sightings of different figures. So this was and this was all tonight that I found these stories. So this one says, the story is not my own, but something my younger sister experienced when she was much younger. Where we live, there's a very old church behind us. And at that time, the back part of the church was being knocked down. My dad's brothers had come over to visit, and one of them had asked my sister to go to the shop to get him something, and to get to the shop, you have to walk past the church. And I'm not sure if it was on the way there or back, but there was a wall that they had not fully knocked down yet. And there was a window on this wall, and as she walked past, she saw an elderly couple there. The man was giving his wife flowers wrapped in newspaper, and my sister ran back to the house and told us the next. I'm sorry. Says told us the next day. My mother spoke to someone about it. I'm thinking they messed up the thread of that sentence there. Let's just try this. And told us. And the next day, my mother spoke to someone about it, and the person told my mother that many years ago, an elderly couple owned the church, and on every Sunday, the husband would bring his wife flowers home, wrapped up in newspaper. And I honestly think that's beautiful. And that's where the story ends. And I agree with the writer. That's an amazing thing. Whether that is a residual kind of apparition, it seems like it could be, especially if there was no real other interaction. That always, to me, makes it seem like that's at least possible. But yeah, neat sighting there. I wonder, once the place was changed and or that wall was torn down, I always wonder about that. Does that somehow disrupt the energy field to where the same thing doesn't happen over and over again? Or how does that work? And again, I have no idea, but it's fun to consider the possibilities there. So, let's go on to the next story here. Okay. This one says, last night, I gently woke from a deep sleep. I was sleeping on my back with my left cheek on the pillow. I opened my eyes and turned my head slowly to the right and was met with a blonde-haired woman peering directly down at me, and just behind her shoulder was a dark-haired, mustached man. They both had puzzled looks on their faces, almost as though they were confused to find me in this bed. I blinked my eyes and then watched them spiral or swirl into nothing. Something like you would see in a cartoon. It feels incredibly silly to describe it this way, but that is exactly what I saw. The woman was wearing a red, long-sleeve, high-necked dress, and the man was wearing a dark suit, both fitting of the characteristics of the clothing style of the late 1800s, early 1900s. I didn't feel scared or threatened, but I did have a hard time going back to sleep and haven't been able to get their images out of my mind since. I asked my landlady if anyone has ever mentioned any encounters in my place. She said the only thing she is aware of is the ghost of her uncle named George that lives in what is now her house, next door to my place. She said she's never seen George herself, though. We live in a tiny, fairly rural town where the Great Northern, I'm guessing they mean railroad, runs through. Being relatively new to the area, I don't know much about the town's history. So I put my online detective skills to the test and learned that my house is about a half a mile from where the red light district was located at the turn of the century. I'm not freaked out and don't feel uneasy in my place, but it will be interesting to see if they come back. And that's the end of that story. That's an amazing sighting. Um, and I wonder about if it was. I mean, it seems like they were fairly aware of the writer. Yeah. Hello, Ricky. It says, I wonder if it was the previous owners of the house. Could be, and maybe they were trying to figure out who was in. I wonder if the bed was original to the house or not, or if it was in the same place as their own bed. Either way, if they are, whether they're spirits or it's some kind of a, it doesn't seem like it would be a, I don't know, maybe it would, it's possible and things appear and disappear different or in similar ways for time anomalies or as they do for spirits, but the way they kind of seem to disappear doesn't seem like it was a quick instant disappearance. It was like a fading or a shifting out of the area. But yeah, it seems like they were aware of what was going on and just confused. Again, not hostile in any way, but maybe they were all just wondering who was in their home, both the writer and then the couple. So, hard to say, but neat sighting there. So, I think we have time for one more story here, at least. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, this one says, years ago, my ex-wife and I were visiting her parents for Christmas in Illinois. We arrived late and were staying in their guest room. At about 2 a.m., I was awakened by the sound of children laughing and playing outside the bedroom. I looked up and saw my mother-in-law standing in the window looking out at the children. I didn't think anything of it and simply rolled over and went back to sleep. The next morning, at breakfast, I asked my mother-in-law about coming into the room and looking out the window. She said, I didn't come into your room last night. I would never just come in when guests are staying. Then my ex-wife said she couldn't have come in because I locked the door. I asked then who was the lady standing and looking out the window. My mother-in-law looked at her husband and said he saw her. I said, her? Who is her? She said, we have a ghost that guests have seen standing in that window, looking out. We don't know who she is, only that she is harmless. She just stands there, looking out the window. Up until this visit, I did not believe in ghosts, but I know what I saw. I saw her so clearly. I thought it was my mother-in-law. Needless to say, my ex-wife and I stayed in a hotel for the rest of our visit. I am now a believer. So that's where that story ends. I wonder, and what I'm wondering about the story is, the writer did not mention the kids to the mother-in-law, the sound of the kids playing outside. So were those also part of some kind of a residual energy playback, or other actual kids at some point? Was the woman at the window the only paranormal thing in that situation, or were the kids part of it, or at least the sounds of the kids? So hard to tell with that one, but I'd be curious about the history of that area and just other details, if anyone else had any experiences with kids there, or if it was a one-time deal just for the writer of the story there. I would guess if it was something that was seen that frequently, that maybe they were, but then also, if people had seen her before besides the writer, then, and the kids were part of that, wouldn't they have noticed the sound of the kids playing? So, a lot of questions there. So yeah, hard to say. Right. Yeah. Ricky in the chat says, yeah, the kids could have been the reason she was looking out. But yeah, but the kids could have been residual sound. Lots more questions to ask for sure. Exactly. Yeah. So that's all I have time for today, though. Thank you all for listening, and I'll be back tomorrow to cover paranormal news on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care.